Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of Daf Yomi. Today we find ourselves on the hollow ground of Menachot 89a. The Daf begins with the discussion of the menorah and laws concerning its materials. The Gemara debates whether the mouth of the lamps may be made of pure gold or whether any gold will suffice. This leads us to a crucial legal principle. One application follows another. When the Torah repeats a word, it is not for naught, it is to teach us something new. How here the repetition of gold comes to tell us that even the very part of the mouth of the lamp, part that holds the wick, must be of the highest quality. We do not act like paupers in the house of the king. Then the Daf transitions to the Lord of Korban Todah, the thanksgiving offering. The Mishnah tells us that a half log of oil was used for the accompanying meal offerings. This seems to contradict the general rule that all meal offerings require a full log. The Gemara in this brilliant way resolves this apparent contradiction, demonstrating how the specific verse regarding the thanksgiving offering provides a unique rule for its oil measurement. We see here the meticulous nature of the Torah, which provides a distinct law for each and every sacrifice. Let's dive straight in. So just carry on from the last Amud. The Gemara questions the need for the derivation of the Brisa, but the requirement and the vessels made of gold is explicitly written in the verse, and you shall fashion its lamps 7, and they shall kindle its lamps, and they will enlighten toward its face, and its tongues and its pans shall be of pure gold. Exodus 25:37-38. Why is it necessary for the Brisa to derive from this phrase with all these vessels? The Gemara explains this derivation of the Brisa is necessary only to teach that the same applies to the mouth of the lamps where the wicks rest. Otherwise, it may enter your mind to say that since the mouth of the lamp blackens and is damaged by the burning wick, therefore the principle that the Torah spared the money of the Jewish people should be applied, and consequently that the mouth of the lamp be fashioned from gold of any quality. There was a fonet le'aver, zahav kol tehu. There are two versions of the Gemara text here. The standard version states, let it be fashioned from gold of any quality. Other versions state, let it be fashioned from anything, i.e. from a metal other than gold. These two versions are based on different versions of Rabbi Yeshua ben Kocha's exposition. He derived from the phrase, with all these vessels, Exodus 25:39, that the candelabrum and all its associated departments fashioned from gold. Some versions of Gemara record that he stated that they should be fashioned from pure gold. Accordingly, when the Gemara here suggests that one could compromise on that requirement, the suggestion is that only that for the mouth of the lamps, regular quality gold could be used instead of pure gold. Rashi manuscript Rabbeinu Gershom Hagol, other versions of the Gemara state that he said simply that the candelabrum part must be fashioned from gold. Accordingly, the suggested compromise would be to construct the mouth of the lamps from another less expensive metal, to Tosfot, not necessarily from pure gold. Therefore, the Brisa teaches that even the mouth of lamps must be fashioned from pure gold. The Mishnah teaches a half log of oil was used to measure oil for the thanks offering. The thanks offering is accompanied by 4 different types of loaves. 3 types were unleavened, and 1 was leavened, as the verse states. If he offers it for a thanks offering, he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanks offering unleavened loaves mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and poached fine flour loaves mixed with oil. With loaves of leavened bread he shall present his offering, with the sacrifices peace offerings for a thanks offering. Leviticus 7:12-13 is taught in a Brisa. Rabbi Akiva says, why must the verse say with oil? With oil writing twice. Why was the first time not sufficient? Because with the term with oil stated only once, I would have said that with regard to the amount of oil required, the meal offerings that accompany the thanks offerings are like all other meal offerings to the extent they require 1 log of oil. Now the verse read with oil, it constitutes one amplification following another amplification, and the principle is that one amplification following another amplification serves only to restrict the extent of the halacha. Accordingly, in this case, the verse restricts the amount of oil used in the 3 types of unleavened meal offerings to half a log of all of them together. The Gemara interjects the citation of the Brisa to ask, is this a case of one amplification following another amplification? It would appear that there is only one amplification, as according to the Brisa, the first mentioned term with oil is necessary to teach the basic requirement that the meal offerings of the thanks offering require oil, like the other meal offerings. How then can it be considered an amplification? Rather, Rabbi Akiva's statement that should be amended as follows: were the term with oil not written at all, I would still have said that the thanks offering meal offerings are like all of meal offerings to the extent that they require 1 log of oil. Now that the verse read with oil, it constitutes one amplification following another amplification, And their principle is that one amplification following another amplification serves only to restrict the extent of the halacha. Accordingly, in this case, the verse restrict the amount of oil used in the three types of unleavened meal offerings to half a log for all three together. The Gemara resumes its citation of the Baita. Once it had been established that the meal offering required only half a log of oil, one might have thought that this half log should be equally divided between the three types of unleavened meal offerings. So let's explain that. Chatzi log ze mechalek, this loshes meaning. Half a log of oil is used in preparing the 30 unleavened loaves of a thanks offering. This requirement to use this amount is halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai. The oil is divided between the three types of loaves. 1/4 of a log is used for the poached loaves, 1/8 of a log is used for the regular loaves, and 1/8 of a log is used for the wafers. This is according to the ruling of Rabbi Kiva and the tradition of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rambam Sefer Kabbalah 9:20 of the unleavened meal offerings, i.e. 1/6 of a log for the loaves, 1/6 for the wafers, and 1/6 for the poached loaves. When the verse states with oil, Rashi explains that the source for the requirement of oil in a poached loaf is derived from the case of a griddle cake offering. On a pan it shall be made with oil. When it is poached, you shall bring it in broken pieces. You shall offer the meal offering for a pleasing aroma to the Lord. In Leviticus 6:14. With regard to the poached loaves, there are various opinions concerning the meaning of the word vicha and the manner in which these loaves are prepared. Some explain that the term refers to poaching loaves by dunking them in boiling water. Rashi manuscript on 77a, Rashi on 53a, and on Devach on 50a. Those who accept this interpretation discuss whether the poaching was performed when the dough was kneaded or only after it was baked. Others explain that the revicha refers to the addition of an abundance of oil. These opinions agree that the loaves were also poached, but they hold that they were poached in boiling oil, not water. And that's the Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagon. Others explain that loaves are poached twice. Initially, they were poached in boiling water, and then after they were baked, they should have been poached again in boiling water. And that's the Rambam's Sefer Kabbalah 9:19. That is seemingly superfluous, as there is no need for the verse to state that the requirement to use part of the half log of oil, meaning that the requirement has already been established. It must therefore serve to amplify the amount of oil used for a poached loaf as opposed to the other two types. How so? One brings a half log of oil and divides it equally into two. Half of it is further divided and used both for the 10 regular loaves and for the 10 wafers, and the other half of it is used entirely for the 10 poached loaves. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said to Rabbi Akiva, even you were to amplify the halacha the entire day from the terms of oil with oil. I will not listen to you and accept your claims. Rather, the halacha that a half log of oil is required for a thanks offering. Similarly, the halacha of a quarter log of oil is required for the loaves of a Nazarite. The requirement to use a quarter log of oil for kneading the 10 unleavened loaves and sparing the 10 unleavened wafers that a Nazarite bring together with a priest offering ram on the day of his Nazarite ends is a halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai in the tradition of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. In Sefer Kabbalah 9:23 and the Sefer Haflah Nazirut 8:1. The halacha that a woman who experiences emission of blood during this 11 days that are between one 7-day period of menstruation and the next period of menstruation is a zava. There are 11 days between one menstruation period and the next, such that if a woman experiences bleeding during those 11 days, she is a zava. Is halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai, and according to the tradition of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, from Sefer Kedusha Chadishim Midbeah 5:6-3. Each of these halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai, and they are not derived from verses. The only commentary dispute to what extent, if any, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah disagrees with Rabbi Akiva. Some explain that both agree to the actual detail of the halacha itself. This agreement is only with regard to the source of the halacha, specifically whether it can be derived from verses or is halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai, as Rashi. Others further limit the disagreement, claiming that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agrees that the basic requirement for half a log of oil is derived from the verses, as Rabbi Akiva expounded them. The disagreement concerns only the source of the halacha, that the oil should be split into three parts, one of which is larger than the others. This understanding of disagreement is supported by the fact that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah mentions only the amplification of the verse in his explanation, from which the three-part division is derived, but does not mention the restrictions derived from the verse, which limits the requirement of oil to half a log. Evidently, he does not disagree with regard to the latter derivation canon, or other commentaries that claim that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah actually rejects the entire halacha stated by Rabbi Akiva, and holds that half a log of oil was in fact divided into three equal parts between the three types of loaves, as Rashi manuscript. The Mishnah states that with the vessel of one log, one would measure the oil for all standard meal offerings. It then decides a dispute between the rabbis, who holds that one log is required for each tenth of an eighth of flour used, and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who holds that each meal offering in respect of its size requires only one log of oil. Sages taught about it. With regard to a poor leper who cannot afford the standard offerings required as part of the purification process, and is instead required to bring one lamb as a guilt offering, and a tenth of an eighth of flour as a meal offering, it is written, and a tenth of a part of an eighth of fine flour mixed with oil for meal offering and a log of oil, Leviticus 14:21. The verse juxtaposes the need for a log of oil with the fact that the offering is made of a tenth of an eighth of flour. Accordingly, it teaches about each tenth of an eighth of flour that it requires one log of oil. This is the statement of the rabbis. Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer say, each meal offering in respect of its size, and even a meal offering of 60 tenths of an eighth of flour, requires only a single log of oil, as is stated with regard to offering of a leper, and the tenth of an eighth of fine flour mixed with oil for a meal offering and a log of oil. The juxtaposition of a meal offering with a log of oil teaches a principle for all meal offerings. Each offering requires only one log of oil. The Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, what do they do with this verse? And the tenth part of an eighth of fine flour mixed with oil for meal offering and a log of oil, which links the need for a log of oil with the fact the offering is made of a tenth of an eighth of flour. The Gemara explains that verse is required to teach the matter itself, as the merciful one states, let a poor leper bring an offering of just a tenth of an eighth of flour. Accordingly, it cannot be used to teach a principle about meal offerings. The Gemara asks, and as for the other, i.e. the rabbis, how do they respond to this claim? They maintain that it is not necessary to teach the matter itself, as from the fact the merciful one revealed with regard to a leper who is not poor that he must bring 3 animal offerings and a meal offering of 3 tenths of an ephah as part of his purification process. It may be inferred that here, with regard to a poor leper who brings only 1 offering and similarly brings a meal offering of only a tenth of an ephah, accordingly the fact that the verse mentions that his offering is only a tenth of an ephah is superfluous and can teach a principle for all meal offerings. The Gemara continues to ask, and as for the other Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer, how would they respond to this claim? They maintain it was necessary for the verse to state the size of his meal offering, and otherwise it might enter your mind to say that since the merciful one spared the money of a poor leper by allowing him to bring an offering affordable in poverty, one might say the merciful one does not require from him to bring any meal offering at all. The Gemara will respond, and will ask, and as for the other, the rabbis, how they respond to this, they claim that we do not find that the Torah entirely exempts a poor person from the offering of the purification process, only then provide a less expensive way to complete that process. The Gemara asks, and as for the rabbis, what do they do with the juxtaposition from the end of the verse? For a meal offering and a log of oil, from which Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer derive the principle that each meal offering requires only 1 log of oil. The Gemara explains, the rabbis maintain that the juxtaposition teaches about one who donates a meal offering without specifying its size, and he should not bring less than the amount of flour that requires 1 log. The minimum amount of flour used for meal offering sacrifice in the altar is a tenth of an ephah of flour. In accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, as the Gemara explains, Rambam Sefer Avod Hilchot Ma'aser Chabanan 12:5, 17:14. And what is this amount? A tenth of an ephah. The Gemara asks, and as for the other Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer, from where do they derive that halacha? As they maintain that the verse teaches the principle for all meal offerings, the Gemara explains, they maintain that 2 halachot can be derived from this verse. The Mishnah lists the quantities of oil and wine that were required for the meal offering libation that accompanied the sacrifice of an animal: 6 log, i.e. 1/2 of a hin, for those of a bull, and 4 log, 1/3 of a hin, and for those of a lamb, and 3 log, i.e. 1/4 of a hin, and for those of a lamb. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive these quantities? We should derive them from a verse, as it is written, and the libation shall be 1/2 of a hin of wine for a bull, and 1/3 of a hin for the ram, and 1/3 of a hin for the lamb. Numbers 28:14. The Gemara elaborates. Now, one hin is 12 log, as it is written, and of olive oil a hin in Exodus 30:24, and it is written afterward in the same verse, sacred anointing oil. This zeh shall be for me throughout your generations. The numerical value gematria of zeh is 12. From the Greek gematria, which is originally referred to geometry and is the measurement of land, although the Greeks themselves use it in reference to mathematical calculations in general. In rabbinic literature, has both a broad meaning of arithmetic and mathematical calculations, and there is a specific meaning of calculating numerical values of Hebrew words based on numerical values of their letters. Once it is established that one hin is 12 log, it is possible to calculate how many logs are 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4 of a hin. The Mishnah teaches that 3.5 log of oil were required for the candelabrum, as there were 7 lamps, and half a log was required for each lamp. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? They are derived from a verse, as the sages taught in Abai to the verse stage with regard to the candelabrum. Aaron and his sons shall arrange it from evening to morning before the Lord, Exodus 27:21. This indicates that you shall put into each lamp a required quantity of oil, so they will continue burning from evening until morning. Alternatively, the phrase from evening to morning indicates that the mitzvah is fulfilled throughout the night, and you have no other right that is valid from evening to morning except for this one alone. This statement would appear to suggest that the kindling candelabrum may be performed at any point during the night. Certainly incorrect, as the Torah mandates the candelabrum be kindled toward the end of the day. So the one who delays kindling until after nightfall, I think I should say, not rightful, has neglected the positive mitzvah. Rather, the intention of the statement is that this is the only rite which, were not to be performed on time, should still be performed throughout the night. See response of the Rashba. Some commentators reject this explanation. Note that the Gemara Pesachim 59a clearly states that the kindling of the candelabrum is considered the last rite of the day and may be performed no earlier or later. They therefore suggest that the statement means that once its rite is performed, no other rite may be performed until the following morning. That's the response of the Rashba. And the sages calculated that a half log of oil for each lamp is necessary to ensure that they continue burning from evening until morning. How did the sages reach the conclusion that half a log of oil is needed? They are those who say that the sages calculated initially by using a large quantity of oil, more than necessary to burn throughout the night, and then decreasing the quantity by a small amount each night, until they saw at the end of the night that there was no oil remaining. And there are those who say that they calculated initially by using a small quantity of oil, and then increasing quantity each night until they saw that the quantity was sufficient to allow the lamps to burn throughout the night. The Gemara elaborates. One who said that they calculated by increasing quantity each night holds and did so in accordance with the principle that the Torah spared the money of the Jewish people, so that the sages wish to minimize the financial cost of their experimentation. And the one who said that they calculated by decreasing quantity each night holds that the temple one's action should not be motivated by concern for financial cost, as in a place of wealth there is no poverty. Mishnah. Many animal offerings are brought together with a meal offering and one libation. These additions are collectively referred to as libations. One may mix together the libations of bulls and the libations of rams. The term libations can refer specifically to wine libation, but is also used collectively to refer to both meal offering and wine libation that accompany an animal offering. Accordingly, it is not clear whether the Mishnah permits the mixing of different types of wine libations or is referring to mixing different types of meal offerings together. Many commentators explain that the Mishnah is referring also to the meal offerings in line with the general topic of this tractate. And that's Rabbi Vadia Bartano, and how this is how the Gemara initially understands it. In the ensuing discussion, the Gemara considers the possibility that it refers only to mixing together the wine libations. The meal offering may be mixed as they both share the same ratio of flour to oil, i.e. 2 logs of oil for each 1/10 of an eighth of flour. Likewise, many mix together bases of lambs with libations of other lambs, as the meal offering both share the same ratio of 3 logs of oil for each 1/10 of an eighth of flour. And one may mix together the libations of an offering of an individual with those of a communal offering. Thank you for listening. And just a quick conclusion. The ultimate takeaway from today's daf, my dear friends, is the paramount importance of precision and intention in our service of Hashem. Whether it is the physical materials of the base of mikdash, the exact measurement of an offering, or the intention behind our actions, every detail matters. The Gemara is not merely a book of laws, it is a guidebook for life, teaching us that there is holiness to be found in the mundane, and our service of God is reflected in the care and attention we give to every single detail. It is this message of dikdok, of scrupulousness, that shines throughout every line of today's daf. Thank you for joining me on the sacred journey. Until tomorrow, I bless you with desire to learn to grow in your understanding of Torah and hit your art. Thank you for listening, and all the best. Bye.